Welcome to Independent Homework 4 Hints. Begin by downloading the file from Learning Plan 4. The spreadsheet will have any available resources such as your book or page number listed at the top of the spreadsheet. This homework is focusing on creating a payroll register, and the formulas can be very challenging in this assignment, so I've given you some hints, and one of the formulas we will walk through. I expect you to use rounding formulas in both the Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes, and you'll see that as we walk through Social Security taxes together. Another thing that I'd like you to do is go ahead and reformat these formula cells just by highlighting and right-clicking. You can say Format Cells. And let's change our decimal places to 2 since we're dealing with payroll. I'm sure the employees would like to know. To the penny. So let's dive into this Social Security tax. This is a challenging formula because it's going to have not only one if statement, but it's going to have a second if statement built into the first if statement. So I thought, this is probably the most complicated formula that you'll see in this class. Let's do this one together. Essentially, what we're trying to calculate here with the Social Security taxes is that once the wages of the employee go over $106,800 for the year, then the Social Security tax ceases to be charged. So then we'll need to build 2 if statements in one to say that if gross wages is over $106,800, then 0 Social Security tax from that point on. If your wages are below $106,800, then we're going to multiply it by the 6.2% that's indicated here below. And the very first employee, Jones, is what's going to cause us the most trouble because he's very close to that cutoff. So essentially, if we're doing the November payroll, if according to the October 31st payroll, his gross pay was $105,000, his new gross pay is $9,000, we're going to hit that cutoff. But we only want to calculate the 6.2% from the difference between the $106,800 and the $105,000. So really, $1,800 is what we want our formula to apply to the 6.2%. So let's go ahead and try and build this formula together. So since we want these 2 columns to round, let's go ahead and start with our round function. And then we're going to dive right into our if statement. Okay? And you'll notice we'll have a lot of parentheses in this formula. And if you've got one encompassing one way, you've got to eventually get a matching pair to it. So the parentheses can be a very frustrating part when you are building very long and intense formulas. So just keep that in mind as we're going along. So our first if statement is going to say if cell I-14, so we're going to just take a look at the cumulative gross pay as of the last payroll. Okay, if this cell is greater than looks like it did a range here for me. We're looking at I-14. If that is greater than this maximum income, then go ahead and put 0. That's fine. Okay? But if it's not, normally you would put what you want the formula to input if it's not. But we've got this weird scenario where we've got a limitation, and this is kind of where we dive into calculating the difference between the $105,000 and the $106,800. So this is where we launch into a second if statement. So we're going to just put an if. We're going to need 2 parentheses here. So we'll take our C14 again. We're going to add our I14. So now we're taking a look at what Jones was paid at the end of October 31st plus his new gross pay. Okay. Put our parenthesis in there to end that one. If that is greater than our same G26, then we want our formula to go ahead and take G26 minus the I14. So back up here. And sometimes if you've already got it highlighted, you might have to manually type in that cell to get it to recognize it. We're going to end our parenthesis. Okay. The difference between those two is what we want to multiply on our 6.2%. Okay. So G24. Okay, if not, we're going to take C14 times the G24 again. Okay, now we got to close up all those open parentheses that we have out there. And this last comma dash 2 is to complete our original round statement that we had in there. All right, so Excel tries to help you up by color coding, your parentheses to let you know which ones are matching or not. So when we have this many parentheses, we kind of just cross our fingers and hit enter to see if it works. Okay, and it looks like it worked. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that you're going to want to go back to this formula and go ahead and determine which cells you're going to have to apply an absolute value to when you are ready to go ahead and pull that formula down. All right, the other one I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint on is union dues. What you're trying to do here is build an if statement, taking a look at this union column. If there's a yes, you want to insert $25 in here. If it's a no, you want to insert 0. And again, just remember that once you build these formulas across, if you are pulling them down, go ahead and pay attention to absolute values. And also be careful on the cumulative gross pay column. Just take some time, make sure that you are filling that one out correctly. Some students have struggled with that one in the past. One last thing is that you might notice that the federal income tax is different than what your book is showing. That's fine. It's not really, it is affecting some of your formulas, but don't let that bother you. It's just a slightly different data set. So that concludes the hints on independent homework 4. Please remember to submit 2 files, both the replicating exercise we covered in Learning Plan 3, as well as the independent homework, in a single submission for grading by the deadline indicated on your syllabus.